latest episode of the Rob Harkavy interviews only on Apple's Global TV. Now, when I was sent a preview of my next guest's latest single called San Francisco, I loved it. So without delay, our team of people got in touch with her team of people to secure this interview. Now, I know you're going to love her music and you're going to love her. So let us give a humongous Out News Global welcome to the brilliant Megan Black. Hello, Megan.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Megan, for joining us today. Now, before anything else, you get the same question that all my favourite guests get at the beginning of the interview. How have the last very disrupted 18 months been for you?
That's a good question. There's been a mix of things. I'm not the most sociable person, so the whole kind of isolation thing really hasn't bothered me too much. But I suppose as a musician, not having gigs has been pretty terrible. So it's a mix of both. But I'm healthy, so
yeah.
Overall, not too bad.
That's it. Not being able to gig is a horrible thing, but I suppose compared to what some people have been through, it's not such a terrible sacrifice. Now, you write your own stuff, and I'm always really interested in the writing process. Do you come up with a lyric? Do you come up with a melody? Is it all different? So the process of Megan Black penning a new track, how does that actually work?
I think it really does just depend. Normally, I'm one of these really annoying people where, do you know these people that will just sing a tune over and over again? Like, they'll just be doing it, like, everywhere they go, and it's just the same thing over and over.
Yeah, I think that should be grounds for murder, I think, but okay.
I do it all the time. Every job I've worked in, people are like, can you stop? So I think for me, anyway, in terms of music I write, I tend to get a sort of a melody or a kind of phrase stuck in my head for a significant amount of time that eventually I'm like, okay, I need to work out what this means. I think in terms of lyrics and things, I'll just kind of write down ideas as I go. If I meet like a random like hippie on a bus or something like that, or like a drunk guy or whatever, like I just maybe write something about them and then come back to it later on. But yeah, it tends to come from having a tune stuck in my head, and then I'll normally try and write it on a guitar or piano and go with that.
You're a young woman starting out in the music industry, and I know you were singled out by the BBC, I think in 2019, as one to watch. And in this era of the pandemic, 2019 is basically yesterday, because there's a year or so which we completely write off. Now, the Me Too campaign has highlighted some of the sexism and misogyny in the entertainment industry, and worse. So I just wondered, from your perspective, what's it like from that point of view, being a young woman trying to break into the business? And do you think you'd have been treated any differently if you were a bloke?
Yes, is the short answer to that. I personally, through my kind of growth, I suppose, as a person, I have realised a lot of issues that I have with gender. I do struggle with my own gender identity, and I think there's a lot to be said about I got to the point where I almost wished I was a guy, like, as an artist. I remember going to a gig once and I was wearing this outfit and I was just feeling myself, I was just vibing, and I was like, I wish I could wear exactly what I'm wearing, play exactly what I'm going to play, but as a man, because I would have such a different response and different treatment. And that's quite a sad state to get to. And I know it's something that a lot of people, women and non-binary artists, have commented on as well, that they would be treated differently. And I think definitely in terms of the misogyny and stuff, my own personal experience as an artist, being a female artist, has meant that my treatment and my experience have been not so great at times. And yeah, I think there's a lot of issues around kind of equality, not just even in terms of gender, but in terms of representation in general.
Sure.
Obviously, I can't speak for people of color. I can't speak for disabled people. I can't speak for trans artists. But again, their experience is different because they're not, white cis
Yeah.
het men. So it's quite a difficult thing, and I think I suppose my approach to it going forward is rather than um, rather than trying to like fight it, because I know a lot of men are just doing what they're doing. Like there's a lot of male artists I've met who are just wonderful, talented people, and they deserve the opportunities they get just as much as I do. So I think it's not a case of fighting people; it's a case of promoting that equality and working with people who want equality as well.
And
Um,
that's a fantastic answer, and there's quite a lot to unpick there. Um, so you mentioned at the beginning of that answer that you find yourself struggling with your gender identity. And just to unpack that a little bit, do you mean that you think you may be trans, or do you mean, um, in frustration, you wish you were a bloke because it would be so much easier to have your career, but you're not actually trans? Do you get the
yeah,
difference there? What do you mean by struggling with your gender identity?
um, I think I mean, I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm trans or even kind of curious that in that sense, but I would um, say more leaning towards the sort of non-binary element of things.
Sure.
I think, yeah, from a very young age, and I think there's a lot of things you could comment on. I think in terms of especially being bisexual, and I suppose not being particularly, like, I would say I'm more kind of feminine than not, but I do struggle with the idea of having to represent myself as a woman.
Sure.
Especially when I don't always feel that way. So I think um it's quite important that there's a space for people, regardless of how they represent themselves or how they feel. And I think for me, like obviously it is a spectrum, but I think in terms of my own gender and how I feel within that, definitely falls on a spectrum somewhere.
Yeah.
I think in terms of wanting to be a guy, it's more just it's not even wanting to be a guy. I mean, I'm quite happy with the way I am, and I don't think I have to represent myself a certain way. Um, but I I do find the element of men having a lot more freedom in what they do frustrating, and I think sometimes um, presenting myself more kind of masculine or androgynous, that it's not apparent that I'm a woman straight away or that I'm necessarily um, very feminine, can benefit me sometimes in terms of a kind of power stance more than anything else.
Right. Now, I interview a lot of musicians, singer-songwriters, and I know quite a few as well through my work. And I know that to do what you do, you're kind of always working. But even Megan Black has to switch off sometimes. What is it you do to relax?
um, this is the thing. I'm actually like, and I don't even mean this in a negative way anymore, but I'm actually a very boring person. Like outside of gigging and stuff, I am quite happy, like sitting in on my own with a book and reading and drinking wine, and that's kind of like a happy place for
Don't
me.
knock it, Megan. That is living the dream.
It's definitely the dream. So yeah, I think like I'm kind of just yeah. In terms of relaxing, I just like to kind of be mellow and not really do too much. So
Yeah, which being mellow segues beautifully into your hippie-inspired new single, San Francisco, which is out tomorrow.
Yeah.
27th of August, isn't it? Now, my reading of the track, and I have to say, we had it, I won't say on a complete loop, but when I received it a couple of days ago from your PR, I think we must have played it here at HQ 5 or 6 times.
Oh.
And we all loved it. And it's kind of, I would, uh, I don't want to tell you what your song's about, but
Mhm.
part of it is something of a love letter to the kind of old West Coast, San Francisco counterculture of which is 50 years old or more. So what is it about that kind of hippie counterculture half a century on that appeals to a young woman from Scotland?
I don't know, to be honest. I think from quite a young age, like I got into the sort of like hippie mentality, just like the clothes I wear, and I don't know, I just kind of float about, to be honest. So I've
Free
always kind
love
of
and smoking weed. No,
no, don't
nothing
do
wrong
drugs.
with nothing wrong with that.
um, no comment, but yeah, no, in terms of my kind of mindset, I've always kind of romanticized that idea of just being a hippie and floating about. I suppose as well the song kind of um originally came from someone who was very close to me a few years ago talking about how they wanted to move to San Francisco. Which I was like, okay, I didn't really think much of it. And then in terms of being a musician, you don't have to, but in my experience, I've had to do quite a lot of rubbish jobs. And one of which I was working in a call center. And I just had that moment where I was like, this is just bullshit. Like, this is just awful. And it kind of just hit me like, I could just float away. And I suppose the song's got a kind of underlying sense of like, not really anger, but just that sort of like frustration, if you like, about almost having to kind of wish you were separate from your own life in order to enjoy it a bit more. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, one of the things
being a hippie.
one of the things I really liked about the song is it's clearly original. You don't get a lot of stuff that sounds like that today, but
Yeah.
it's also clearly sort of redolent and reminiscent of that kind of old hippie late 60s, early 70s style. So, which leads me to the question: what sort of music did you listen to uh, growing up, and how do you think those influences may have or may have not informed your sound today?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, and I think it definitely does come from other artists and other influences. Growing up, I distinctively remember my the first um kind of time that I listened to music properly was I had an iPod Shuffle. I don't know if you remember those; they were really tiny things.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember my granddad downloaded loads of music for me and onto this little iPod Shuffle, and it was stuff like Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, Fleetwood Mac. Um, and I just since then, like without obviously stereotyping, I just think like I do listen to a lot of different styles of music, but I I kind of just have the music taste of like an old man. Like I just will listen. Like I mean, obviously this. In spite of other things that may be going on at the moment, like Bob Dylan's one of my favorite artists, and I think he inspires me greatly in terms of lyrics. And I mean, I would love to be Mick Jagger without the misogynism.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
without the misogyny, even.
I was listening to Blonde on Blonde only this morning while walking my dog. Fantastic album. I think maybe his best one. I don't know. That's for another conversation.
Yeah.
Now, I know that San Francisco is hopefully going to be just one of the tracks on a new album. How's the album going? How are you funding it?
The album is very overwhelming. In a good way, but I think it's been such a big thing for me, like the idea of putting together an album. Um, and all of the songs that I want to include in it are all they're all kind of intertwined and they all kind of tell a story. from kind of start to finish, which feels very kind of strange for me, especially, as I'm kind of going through it and we're recording and things. Like, it's just like years of my life kind of just flowing into one thing, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
quite. Um, but I'm very excited about it. I'm excited for people to hear it. We're going to release it on things like CD and vinyl and stuff, which is very exciting for me because I love like putting on a record and listening to it from start to finish. So
yeah.
hopefully the people that buy it also enjoy just experiencing that and having to listen to like every track. So yeah, it's just exciting.
Yeah, you're talking to a middle-aged bloke. That's how I listen to music, Shuffle, what's shuffle?
Yeah.
Um, Now, Megan, the traditional conclusion to this series of the Rob Harkavy interviews is to invite you to participate in a quick fire round. Now, I've been accused in the past of preparing my interviewees for the quick fire round. So if you could just look straight at the camera, Megan, and ensure the people out there that you do not know what's to come.
I don't know what's to come and I'm very scared. So
Okay. No, it's all pretty benign. It's all pretty benign. So let's start with nice simple question for a muso. On stage or in the studio?
on stage,
Okay. Beach holiday or city break?
city break, I think.
Yeah. Fast food or fine dining?
Fine dining.
Yeah. Okay, this one's a bit personal, but hey, soft and sensual or down and dirty?
Mm, down and dirty, probably.
Yeah, let's hear it, let's hear it for the down. You know what? Almost everyone has said that, actually. I've done about 100 of these. There are a few soft and sensuals out there, but most people go for the latter. Megan, it has been a joy meeting you, but sadly, the
Yeah,
relentless march of time has beaten us. I want to congratulate you on a fantastic new single.
thank you.
Buy it, folks. Stream it, folks. Listen to it. You'll love it. I want to congratulate you also on your forthcoming album and to wish you much love, luck, and happiness for the future. Megan Black,
Thank,
thank you.
thank you so much.